In 1990, when childhood friends Magdalena Pawlak, 16, and Robert Bielawski, 18, discovered that they had developed romantic feelings for each other, no one in the small community was surprised. And in 1992, the couple would get married. At the time of their marriage, Robert was only 20 years old, while Magdalena was only 18. Those closest to them said the relationship was bound to happen. The two had been in the same community their entire lives. They lived on the same block, played in the same sandbox, and went to the same primary school. Little did they know that their future held more similarities for them, this time in the form of a shared tragedy. Robert would go on to move in with Magdalena and her parents, as he did not have a permanent job. The family and the newlyweds lived together in Legnica, Poland. Magdalena was a housewife, while Robert eventually earned a living by selling gold at a local market. Robert was also involved in illegal activities, such as playing three-card Monte, scamming people on the streets for money, and smuggling alcohol from the Czech Republic. In late March of 1992, Magdalena became pregnant. However, Robert did not want the baby and urged Magdalena to have an abortion. He even gave her money to terminate the pregnancy. Magdalena, however, refused. And in March of 1993, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl, whom she named Monika. Monika was said to be an adorable baby, with short, curly blonde hair. Those who interacted with her noticed that she was a relatively calm child. She was loved by her mother, who described the baby as the sweetest girl. Monika was the apple of her grandparents' eyes. They absolutely doted on her and would often help Magdalena care for the child. Robert, however, Monika's father, never wanted to become a dad, and when Monika was born, he refused to take care of her. Refusing to accept any responsibility in regards to his lack of use of birth control, Robert shunned both mother and child and went to Italy for 6 months, claiming it was to earn more money, leaving his wife and child in the care of Monika's grandparents. However, Monika's grandparents believe that Robert did not leave in search of higher wages, but because he did not want any responsibility of a child. Magdalena's parents helped her financially and in taking care of Monika. Robert would return 6 months later, but still visibly hated his daughter, and would say, audibly, that he was annoyed by her. He also held a grudge against his wife, as he claimed that the wife gave the toddler too much attention. He would often say in the presence of his wife and her family that raising the child required too much money and that, quote, "this brat needs to be sold, for which we could get a lot of dollars." He also claimed that Magdalena only had time for the child and did not love him anymore. Monika's grandparents hated Robert as well, as he never helped around the house or spent time with Monika. Both parties, however, avoided each other as to stave off conflict. Robert was also physically abusive towards Monika. Monika's grandparents had noticed bruising and pinch marks on her neck several times. It was found that the child had also been previously beaten and kicked. Magdalena recalled that once Robert punched the baby in the face in front of her. The mother at this point should have done the responsible thing and fled the house with the baby, not for her own comfort, but for the safety of her child. However, this is not a story of people who made the right decision, but of many, many wrong decisions culminating in the worst tragedy any parent could experience. Shaped by the early abuse she experienced at the hands of her father, Monika was afraid when she saw her dad Robert and would cover her mouth with her hands whenever he entered the room. On July 16, 1994, when Monika was only 1.5 years old, she came down with a high fever. Magdalena and Robert had made plans to go shopping that day, but, of course, Magdalena immediately wanted to tend to her daughter's health and go to the doctor. However, her parents told her that she could go shopping and that they would take Monika to the doctor. While the grandparents were in the process of leaving the home, Robert came running after them and asked if he could accompany them to the hospital. The grandparents thought it was odd as Robert had never cared for his daughter, but they thought maybe he had had a change of heart, so they agreed. Robert told his wife to go shopping with her friend and that he would meet her later. The grandparents noticed that Robert had a plastic bag with him. When they reached the doctor's clinic, Robert left and returned a half hour later. The doctor, meanwhile, had diagnosed Monika with a cold and prescribed her antibiotics. On the way back home, Monika's grandparents wanted to stop to buy medicine from the pharmacy, while Robert stopped at a payphone in order to call someone. Monika's grandmother went inside the pharmacy in order to buy the medicine, while Monika's grandfather and her father Robert stayed outside with her in a stroller. Her grandmother did not have enough money to pay, so she called her husband to pay for the medicine. Her husband went inside the pharmacy, briefly leaving Robert in charge of Monika. This would be the last time that Monika was seen by her grandparents, ever again. When the grandparents came out of the store, Robert and Monika were nowhere to be found. However, her grandparents did not think much of it at the time, as they assumed that, as Monika may have become more sick, Robert probably took her home separately. After returning home, they learned that Robert never arrived, and in searching around, they found that Monika's clothes and Robert's passport were both missing. Alarmingly, the numerous baby photos of Monika were also gone. It is at this point that they remembered that Robert had been carrying a plastic bag with him. They also remembered that Robert had recently applied for his daughter to be entered into his passport, which would enable him to cross the Polish border with her. At the time, Magdalena and Robert had been planning a trip to Italy, so the grandparents did not think much of it. Magdalena's parents urged her to call the police, and she did so, filing a missing persons report. The police took the case seriously and launched a massive search for the father and baby. Magdalena contacted friends and acquaintances, hoping that she would find them there, but they were nowhere to be found. 4 days later, Robert called. Magdalena picked up the phone and immediately asked him, quote, "Where is the baby?" Robert told her to meet him in a park near Kozistaw Legnica and that he would explain everything. Magdalena went to the meeting spot, and her husband Robert told her the tragic news. Monika was dead. He claimed that he had taken Monika to the Czech Republic, where they had had a car accident in which Monika died. Magdalena was heartbroken, but she then started to question his claims. She began to wonder, if Monika had died in a car accident, wouldn't there be a police report? Wouldn't there be an investigation and a funeral for the death of such a young child? Something did not add up. She started questioning Robert and told him that she knew he was lying. Robert then said that he had actually been joking and that he really had given Monika to some gold traders from Katowice for safekeeping. He claimed he did this because he had wanted to hurt his in-laws. He told Magdalena that he would go with her to get Monika back. However, he had a condition. He told her that she had to withdraw her police report, which she had submitted in hopes of finding Monika alive. Desperate, Magdalena went to the police station and dropped the kidnapping charges on her husband. Magdalena then went to Katowice with her husband by train. Robert stated that the people he'd given the child to would meet them at the Katowice train station. However, once they arrived, no one was there. Robert then claimed that they would actually be at the market. The couple searched around the market but could not find them. At some point during the search, Robert disappeared. Magdalena then went back to the Legnica police station and reported her daughter's abduction once again. Police immediately issued an arrest warrant for Robert. Interpol was also alerted, as it was believed that Robert had left the country. A massive search for the girl ensued, and Monika's mother and her grandparents pleaded on TV, asking Robert to bring Monika back, but to no avail. Later, a friend of Robert recalled that the father had mentioned to him that he had sold his baby to an old couple. Weeks, months, and years would pass, but no leads would be found. Then, 2 years later, Polish authorities learned that Robert may have been living in Vienna, Austria. Polish authorities contacted Austrian authorities, but they were not as eager to help. Around this time, Robert would call Magdalena, telling her to come to him and that they could live a new life together and make a new baby. Magdalena contacted the police and told them about the phone call. Robert had told her that he would call her again, so the authorities decided to record his conversation and told Magdalena to try to get information about his whereabouts. During the call, Magdalena asked Robert where she could meet him, but Robert refused to tell her the details of his location. He told her, quote, "If you decide to come to me, I will give you an address in the Czech Republic. They will bring you to me from there." Police tried to track the number, but were unsuccessful. The officers then decided to go to Vienna, disguised as ordinary tourists, as they were certain Robert was hiding there. They were soon able to track him down and took pictures of him undercover. They wanted to catch him right then and there, but realized that they had to follow protocols. They rushed the information back to Poland and presented the photos to police headquarters, who contacted the Austrian officials and presented them with the photos of Robert. On the 29th of September in 1997, Robert was caught and extradited to Poland in order to face charges. During his questioning, he claimed that Monika was staying with a Polish couple living in Vienna named Zbyszek and Alicia. He claimed that he had met the couple at the Legnica market. The couple, he claims, were unable to have a child of their own, so he offered to sell Monika to them. After kidnapping Monika from the pharmacy, Robert recalls that he met with the couple, who paid him 20,000 złotys for Monika. All of them then drove to Vienna. Robert said that he was supposed to have the option to visit his daughter, but that he got very busy and could rarely, if ever, visit her. He claimed that Monika was happy in her new home. During the subsequent interrogations, he would change his story several times, changing the amount of the sale and changing the appearance of the couple. He then claimed that Monika was actually dead. He claimed that she had fallen from a stroller in Legnica and had died. He said that he had buried her body in the suburban Zoltoria forest. Investigators brought cadaver dogs and searched the forest. They took Robert to the spot that he claimed he had buried his child, but he could not find anything. He again changed his story and said that actually his daughter had died in a car accident in the Czech Republic, which was the same story that he had originally told his wife so many years ago. Investigators checked, but there was no description of any accident like that happening in the country at that time. Later, Robert claimed that actually the true story was that he had gone to a grocery store in order to buy something to drink. He said that he had left the baby in the stroller in front of the grocery store. He claims that he does not remember anything after that, as he had taken 12 benzodiazepine pills that morning, resulting in memory lapses. He said that he doesn't remember if he took the baby with him from the store or if he left her there. When asked about the store's location or name, he could not remember. In another interrogation, Robert claimed that his in-laws had actually stolen the baby and sacrificed her. He also tried to fake mental illness by banging his head on the wall, screaming, and threatening to commit suicide. However, the psychologist that was brought in did not buy the story and wrote in his report that Robert is, quote, emotionally immature and lacking in higher emotionality. The psychologist went on to say, quote, he would be able to act to get rid of his daughter by selling her, giving her away, and contributing to her death. Robert was also given a polygraph test, and when asked if he had killed his daughter, he showed signs of nervousness. In the fall of 1998, the Polish District Attorney's Office had his indictment ready, but as no body had been found and there was no actual evidence of a murder, Robert was merely charged with kidnapping and the selling of his daughter. However, it took time to send the indictment papers to the court, as they needed additional documents from Austria. Unfortunately, a year had passed since Robert was in custody, and in order to extend his detention, the consent of the Supreme Court of Poland was needed. The prosecutors from Legnica needed the approval from the General Prosecutor's Office in order to send an application to the Supreme Court. However, the General Prosecutor refused. As a result, Robert had to be released from custody. After his release, Robert unsurprisingly left the country and would disappear for the next 10 years. In 2008, Robert, through his attorney, contacted Polish authorities and told them that he wanted to stand trial and explain the case voluntarily, but with one condition, that they would guarantee him to remain free until the court issues the final verdict. In 2008, the trial would finally commence. Robert this time would testify that all of his previous explanations were not true and that he was actually innocent. He claimed that on that fateful day, he had actually taken a walk with his daughter while her grandparents were in the pharmacy. He then stated that he returned to the pharmacy and gave the stroller to his father-in-law. Robert claimed that he was already scheduled to go abroad that day and that his in-laws had known about it. He said goodbye to his in-laws and left. He claimed this was the last time that he ever saw his daughter. When asked why he had said that he had sold his daughter years ago, he explained that those statements were all made under duress. The trial went on for over a year, and in 2009, Robert was found guilty of kidnapping and selling his daughter. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, in the original deal, Robert had requested not to be arrested until the final verdict was given. Using the language of this appeal, he waited for the appellate court to finally review his case, and when the higher court upheld the verdict, Robert, before being remanded, escaped and fled the country once again. He would remain missing for 4 years. He would be captured again on the 12th of September in 2013 by the Austrian police and again handed over to Polish jurisdiction. He is currently serving his time in prison and refuses to answer any further questions. In the mid-2020s, a 27-year-old woman from the United States found out that she was adopted and began her quest to find out more about her biological parents. She began searching the internet and found Monika's description listed in a database. She contacted authorities, believing that she may have been the missing girl, as her age and physical characteristics matched with the missing child. However, a DNA test ruled her out. Monika's grandparents sadly passed away without ever knowing what happened to their granddaughter. It has been 29 years since her mother last saw her. Magdalena continues to hold out hope that someday Monika will find her way back to her, either in this life or the next. If you possess any information regarding this case, please contact Polish authorities or Interpol.